If you were to take a straw poll and ask a lot of people in the growing Korean underground scene what's going on right now, they're just going to say this has been the best year ever for Korean underground music.
Many people are interested in electronic music these days.
There are the underground clubs and, the movement is there.
It used to be just a club or just a genre or a party, but now it's more like a lifestyle.
So far, it's like a volcano.
Tastes are being created right now. Like that's what's so interesting about Seoul now, is that everything is being created, It's just like a ball of clay.
There used to be a techno scene and there used to be a house scene as well. And it never really died out, but it's getting to be on the spotlight again.
Early 90s, it actually started the electronic scene, technos and everything like that.
But it was really local and not really famous outside of Korea.
Almost 20 years ago, I think, always there was electronic music in underground club and so many DJs were there, but in Korea, there's not much information about electronic music, actually. So there's no media. 5 years ago, in Korea, there was not Spotify, there was not iTunes, actually. The Apple Music launched this year. Mixmag Korea just opened this year.
If you're a teenager in Korea and you go on the internet to try to find information about music, for example, you use Naver. And Naver is a Korean company. So the results you will find on the search engine are all in Korean and about Korea. So if you try to find information about Moody Man or Seo Parish, you won't get many results.
Neighbor, you don't know. You can find it. There's no information, So you have to work on it on YouTube or like any others. So that's really a big problem.
In a club, I was playing old Chicago house record from 1995, and I remember that this Korean came to me like, "What is this style of music?" Yeah, most of the time Korean people in club, they think house is really new. And when I tell them it started in the 80s, they can't believe me. They're like, no, this is totally new for us. The scene in Korea is really small, so the clubs are really small, and it's really small because I think Korea is really like an ethnocentric country, which means they are focused in their own production and stuff.
This country is a very new country. I mean, it's got its long history and everything, but after World War II, after the colonization of Japan, after the Korean War, this city had to start out from scratch. No buildings at all, we had palaces ruined, we had to, modify all that and everything. And you guys are here in a 60-year-old city, literally.
Most of the last 50 years, 60 years has been like rebuilding and focusing on like national improvement. There hasn't been much time for culture. So in the last decade, but especially the last 5 years, the young generation, they look around and they're like, okay, we're done, Like their parents' generation, they had to really focus on rebuilding and the practical, bare bones things about making Korea, the power it once was. But now, people have a lot more options.
Everything has been injected so quickly into the people because, of course, the rise of the internet and everything. So this country developed so quickly in the past 60 years, economically and even towards the music industry. And the side effects that I see from my point of view is getting the trends, getting rid of it, getting the trends, getting rid of it. It's just become a habit, a lifestyle for Koreans. And with electronic music, it also evolves.
You can almost see the change monthly. People sometimes say, oh, what kind of music are people into here? And I'm like, I can tell you what they're into like right now, but it will be totally different in like 3 months.
Here in Seoul, everything's mixed up. There's so many other different cultures. Everything's changing every day. So it's really hard to have a very constant taste. Like I like techno only, or I like hip hop only, or like that's a very rare case. Everything's mixed up. So the big thing that should happen to lead a culture is to have cool people or people with taste leading other people. And K-Shop was that place where people with taste will come and lead other people.
I first came in Korea like 6 years ago. I was exchange student just for 1 semester. Back in the day, there were absolutely nothing in Itaewon. It was not an area to party. And now it's the main area if you like electronic music. Club like you can find in Europe, it's just arriving now, kind of. Maybe the first one was like Mystic in 2012. And they do bookings of really underground artists every weekend almost.
Mystique and Cake Shop kind of started that. They had like bookings almost every single weekend, and so they drew in a lot of people into Itaewon actually, which previously wouldn't go there. Like a lot of Koreans didn't. It was kind of a no-go area for them, because it was so like westernized. You had like many GIs around there, English teachers, like it was kind of a bit of a ghetto in a way. And nowadays, like, even people from Gangnam, they come over there. Also to Gyeonggi-dan, which is like right next to Itaewon. It's a bit of a like hip, fancy Soho type of area.
This is all centered in Seoul and really centered in Itaewon. Small part of Seoul, which is the center. It's not throughout the whole country, which is quite different, and which is like hasn't changed that much in a lot of ways, like Busan. When you're talking about Seoul and whatever's happening right now, it's really what's happening in Itaewon, in my opinion. A lot of us that work here live here. And almost all the artists live here, and all the creatives living right in this neighborhood and work in this neighborhood. We don't even leave this neighborhood. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's really like centered on this neighborhood, I feel.
I think the audience that comes to the clubs and the parties, they're more internationally minded. They're more curious, like, they don't necessarily want to jump into some traditionally like good job.
Audience in Korea is quite different. I think people don't know much about electronic music, but they are really interested and they are really open-minded, and they could really like some really different kind of music. They are not really into only one thing. They could listen some like ghetto trap music and the day after go to old school deep house parties, and they would enjoy both.
So they're explorers. I don't know.
DJs who played in our club, and they always ask, why is so many girls? Then because normally in the European clubs are so men's.
You see clubs in Europe are mostly based around men, the front. You've been in some clubs, I guess. The vibe is different, a lot less macho. Women are curious. I think not just in Korea, in the world, it's generally curious, especially in Korea. They're kind of the first people moving into different things, yeah. Clubs have always had a lot of girls in Korea.
Girls here, women here really want to express, I don't know. They drink a lot, Korean. And the boys is kind of following the girls. I don't know, it's quite, weird phenomenon here. Many people are studying abroad, mostly in Europe, and they knew here's something different. 4 or 5 years ago, most of Korean people didn't know about the Berghain. And now it's, many people go to Berlin and they visit Berghain and they just dive into techno music, something like it, and they want to find a similar thing in here.
I think throughout the world it's very trendy for like, you know, the Berlin trek for clubbers. And here it's super trendy, the Berlin thing. So that's like very focused on that right now.
So now is another chapter. We are doing underground music and people come.
We're seeing more and more underground clubs popping up in the Itaewon area and the Hongdae area with good quality music where the venues are really concentrating on the quality of music that they bring instead of, you know, getting wasted with alcohol only and very sex-oriented, you know, hookup clubs here and there.
So as far as the number of clubs, yeah, I mean, compared to London or Paris, there are less clubs, but in 2-3 years, you come back, that's going to be different.
But if you really look at like underground music, it's like 100-150 DJs and producers in the city. Like especially techno is very, very underground in the city, but it's growing really fast actually. It's basically growing exponentially, you know? Like if you look at 5 years ago, what we have now is already cool, and from now it's just exploding basically. I'm really curious to see what it looks like in 2 to 3 years, you know? So it's like roughly 200 plus minus 100. Most of the club's sizes are. Cake is one of the bigger ones actually. Cake shop fits, I guess, 350 maybe, 400. On the other hand, like if you cross the river, you go to Gangnam, you have all those like big room EDM clubs, you know, which fit like, I don't know how many thousand people, like 2,000, 3,000 easily. For that it works, but for a techno club, for example, you can be happy if you can fill up like 200 people.
Where is everybody else? But they're all in Gangnam.
They like more poppy and very hit charting electronic dance music.
Honestly, I wouldn't even mince words. Gangnam is just shit. It's just trash culture. That's what they push out there. You know, it's like the plastic surgery capital of the world. It's really not a healthy environment in a lot of ways.
You want to meet other female or male just for that. That's a very big scene for them. Sexual stuff club is going on, and they make money from that. So they don't really playing music. They only play music for like physical stuff.
I would say it's not about how many people would come into the club. I think it's how much impact it will give to the whole scene. It's more about who comes to the club or what happens after this party. The pop scene in Korea has been changing a little by little from this kind of movement, and more and more pop-related people, artists or you know, like pop stars, would be more related to the underground culture, which is, I think, in a sense, is good, and also, in another hand, it could be a bad thing because it could mess up the scene.
I mean, for instance, you can see like a pop star in a club, in an underground club, for sure. And then somebody sees it and writes about it. You know, this is like the most internet savvy like population on earth, and they write about it. And once that happens, then the club gets hot. And it's like, it's not a bad thing. It's kind of good. And then it gets people that might not be into clubs there. So you can see how it crosses over in a good way as well. You know, when we're talking about like the counter to the Gangnam thing, it's also the counter to the K-pop thing, which is a lot of the good producers, they kind of sell out to K-pop. And they don't even try and find their own voice. So I feel like if we can create a scene that's like sustainable, where people can make a living, and then they don't have to sell out to K-pop, because that's what's happening all the time.
We need more labels. I mean, I do label because I want to export the Korean electronic music to the world.
It's more of like a one-way thing where like Korean people are purchasing and playing records from America and from Europe, and it's not going the other way. Once it starts going the other way, then it has like more legitimacy, and like it can be like a really heavy scene.
What's missing from the Seoul scene is for Korean artists to be booked in similar ways as European artists, which again is very difficult. Again, is connected with that distribution and like pressing issue of record labels, you know, because all that stuff is much more stronger in Europe or in the States, so it's harder for Korean artists to get out there.
And there is certain sort of elements to Korean music which is themselves, you know, there's a rawness, there's a disrespect in a nice way for genres. You know, there's no kind of like cliques and there's no kind of boundaries that people have put around, you know. In Europe, it's kind of tribal sometimes, but I think in Korea, that collectivism which makes the nation what it is, seeps into the music, and you have people supporting different genres in different ways. The techno guys can check out what's happening in the bass scene, and everyone's learning off each other.
People are following things right now really well. And Koreans, like, if you know Koreans in Korean culture, they're like really the best fast followers. They can catch something and follow it. But I think what has to happen here, and it's happening, I can see it now, but we have to see if it really develops, is it has to become a creator culture and create music and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're really like, that's what I'm looking at, like I'm hoping it happens now.
People are trying to follow cool people right now, which is a good thing because it will change the scene. But at the same time, they're following someone. They're not doing their own thing right now. But a lot of new and young DJs or producers are trying to create something new right now. But I would like to see like a progress or a result out of that, like a successful result out of that. And that takes a long time, of course, and that takes a lot of courage and a lot of risks. But yeah, I think it kind of lacks of that courage right now. Like people are still afraid of taking a long time or you know, failing out of trying something new. And I think that should be the new cool thing, you know.
Let the ill mind drum go,